Hi and welcome to our program. Today we are visiting the exhibition Transformations here at the Museum Uge13, a collaboration between the museum and the architecture school of Aarhus. Let's check it out.
This one is a carol from the movie Repulsion, and she's sort of she's a young woman who suffers from schizophrenia, and so they've sort of created a place. I wouldn't necessarily say that it's a shelter for her. It's not somewhere that necessarily helps her, but they've been thinking about how is she, and she's someone who likes to be very reclusive most of the time.
Okay.
Because she has all these visions and so on that are very uncomfortable. And I think just having more people around her is not necessarily something that she enjoys. So they've really retreated. On the other one, you saw the model was right on the edge and wanted to come out and meet people. And here they've sort of pushed it back on the roof terrace, and even built further up to lift her away from people.
So is this like in the middle of nowhere? Or?
This is on the school.
Ah, everything is on the school.
Everywhere is on the school. But it's on the third floor.
Okay.
So in a sense, it's in the middle of nowhere because it's not really part of the city as such. It has. I know they've been working with different viewpoints. Looking out in certain directions, but it's still very detached from the ground and from people around.
But even though it's very detached, she has a lot of windows.
Yeah, exactly. I think that's something that they took from the movie also. So Carol, yeah, she's this young woman with schizophrenia, and the film is very much about. It's about the mental illness, but it's also about, I think, being a young woman and being on display. In the film, she ends up murdering possibly several men who come into her apartment. She also has hallucinations of men coming into her apartment and raping her, I think. But she probably also actually murders some people in the house. So it's a very uncomfortable movie in that way. But then it's about this, I guess, attention also that she gets from these men, and even I think some of them are supposed to be just police detectives, either helping her or investigating her, but at the same time they're always overstepping her boundaries and so on.
Okay. So she kills policemen and this type of things?
I'm not exactly sure who dies, but several men. That are bleeding out in her bathtub. Yeah, so that's really, yeah. But I think that's why they have this sort of. It is quite open. At the same time, she'll sort of be retreating up into each of these boxes. I know they've been working with sort of represent a different level of privacy. Okay. That's why you have the large windows at the bottom here.
Oh, it has things inside.
Yeah, they've really been.
My God.
They've been very thorough with this. I don't know if I can. No. The roof can be removed, but I'm a bit afraid to touch it too much.
Yeah, no, of course. That's a curious placement for a window, because it kind of leads nowhere. Yeah,
that's true. But I think it has a corresponding window up in the floor here.
Okay.
And they've been working also with. Because she's in her home trying to protect herself. That's also what's happening in the movie, right? These men are always trying to come in and violate her, and so she's trying to protect herself. And I think the entrance to the house is right in here, and I think from this uppermost private level, she can see right down to the door to make sure that no one's coming in. That doesn't need to be coming in, right?
Okay. Yeah, then it also makes sense that it has so many windows, so she can look what's happening.
See, exactly, yeah.
Wow, this is really interesting.
I think so.
Yeah. And what about the material? Is there any specific reason why it's like with stripes? Or
So yeah, I think so. We've been working with wooden structures because for this
everything.
Yes.
Okay.
Mostly, I think.
Because I was thinking at the first one.
Yeah, that has a steel structure. Actually,
yeah.
that's true. But we needed to do something light. We're trying to also be slightly realistic. I mean, it's all very much out there, sort of strange and weird. But then when you're considering what are we building, you start to also consider where are we building. And this roof terrace isn't necessarily rated to carry a large concrete structure or something.
Okay.
So we've been working with wooden construction. So in theory, this would be made out of wood somehow, and then they've clad it with some fine wooden boards to express that. And that's where, you know, each architecture project is sort of a meeting between the place that you need to build or that you have to build, the thing that you're building. In this case, it's a home, and then the person or people who need to use it. So you have three things that come into it, and I think the layout of the home and the idea of what takes place in the home, that's very much an interaction between the person and the home, right? Then you start to look into the form. I mean, the layout of these sort of steps, levels of privacy.
Yeah.
They also they reflect the person as well, right? But then you start to see they wouldn't actually be possible without this place that we're building on.
Yeah.
Because they're resting on different parts of the site. So that's an interaction between the thing that we're creating and the site. And again, the structure, that it needs to be light. That's not something that Carol from the movie Repulsion cares about. She doesn't necessarily care about whether it's created out of wood or brick or something. Some clients do, of course.
Yeah.
So that's also an interaction between the building and the site. And so there's sort of three things that are all working together. And of course the location on this site also comes from her need for privacy. So there's a lot to consider. And that's why I know they've been moving it around also, trying to see where could we create something for her. And they've ended up taking this very sort of more isolated position. In the other project we saw, they wanted to be out in public.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Did you also have into consideration budget, or
no?
Okay.
There's no budget here because there's not really any client. They're all fictional characters. But I think that's something we'll be working on in future projects.
Yeah.
We're in the second year of our education here, and we're just very much practicing, the analysis of the client or the user and the site, and then also form and structure. That's what we're focusing on at the moment.
Would you, as a future architect, would you like to design something like this? Or more not your cup of tea, something more like outside of the box, let's call it?
I think so. I think most of the students at our school, we're interested, we love architecture, right? And I guess if you love painting, you love the masterful painting and so on. And if you love architecture, you're really interested in architecture and how complex it can be, also how simple it can be. But you definitely, I think when you enter the school, you have a clear idea that you want to do something out of the ordinary. I think, and that's also how we work at the school. We're never, I guess some people might do that sometimes, but we're always trying to create something that's more than just a house, right? Because we're thinking about architecture as a way to enhance people's lives or enhance the experience that people have. You can always, yeah. There has to be something more to it than just walls and a roof.
Like to give it personality?
Yeah, especially when you're working with users like these. I mean, in some cases, of course, if you're somewhere where you just need the basic necessities, then that's the job that you have as an architect, is to create something that's as simple and maybe as cheap as possible. But in this case, it's trying to explore this personality and this person. So yeah, but I think it's very difficult because right in this case we're creating something for one person. I know this semester we'll be working with sort of a larger scale housing for more people, for a few families and so on. And then then it's maybe not this crazy. Then you have to sort of standardize it a little bit more because more people will be using it and they have different tastes and so on. And there is always, that's something I know that a lot of us think about it, is the climate impact and the social impact of architecture, because it is expensive to build something, and it's more expensive probably to build something fancy. And it's difficult, and you use a lot of materials and energy and so on. So it's always a balance between how artful your architecture should be, and then what the cost of creating it is. And I think a lot of people now think that maybe it's actually the real art is creating something also that is sustainable, both economically, socially, and climate-wise. So it's a balance.
Yeah.
And right now I'm glad that I'm not building something, because I think I still have a lot to figure out.
Yeah, I'm sure it seems very, very complex. But yeah.
Yeah.
So which one is the other building from this one?
Yes.
Or we can go to the chair.
Sure. The other building is here. I think it would be interesting to talk about it. I know I can lift the roof on this one.
Yes.
So this is also quite interesting. It has sort of the same site, but it's using up all of the space on the terrace. We have a drawing over here, probably. Yeah. Yeah. It's sort of using up this entire space on the terrace.
While the other one was just like in over here. I don't know.
Yeah. The other one was in the corner here.
Okay.
And this one is much larger, but as you can see, a lot of it is actually not inside space. Just whatever has the roof on right now is inside, right? And they've been working with Carol as well from Misery, and they've been studying the way that she moves and the way that she interacts with her apartment, because one of the other, besides the sort of privacy problem in the movie, another part of it is that she actually is hallucinating, sort of that her apartment is falling apart and it's attacking her. And I think she also, because of her illness, she doesn't really treat it well at all, and she just has dirt and food lying around and so on. She's been left alone, and that's what they've been focusing on, is the way that she doesn't really interact with her apartment. So you can see here, this would be an inside part, and here this is outside, but there's no real clear distinction.
Yeah, and it's so big compared to that one.
It is.
That one is like more.
Yeah, that's much more compact.
Yeah, and this one's like so
exactly.
all over.
And the idea that they have is that she's sort of just roaming about. She's just walking back and forth, because a lot of what she does in the movie is just walk from one room to the next room, maybe even without an idea of what she's doing there. And I know they placed the refrigerator, I think, out in this courtyard,
Okay.
Because she doesn't really have any. She doesn't treat her basic needs in the same way that we do.
Okay. So it's not a priority.
Exactly.
For her.
So she will just open the refrigerator maybe and just take some food directly out of it and eat it while she's standing there. Then she'll move on. And so they've sort of created this place where there are some walls sort of that are that are maybe defining the area of the house.
Okay.
But they imagine her just sort of ping-ponging around, just walking from one room to the next without any real purpose. And sort of never settling down.
Does it have doors or?
I think not. So it's not very practical necessarily.
Okay.
But neither is Carol. I think that's part of their point is that she's not really in this world.
Yeah, she's not very rational.
Yeah, exactly. She's in her head, and so these things like the cold or creating a meal and sitting down and eating and watching television or whatever it is that we do, she doesn't do that.
Okay.
And so it's not a very homey home. It's not necessarily a nice place to be. But
just a place.
It's just a place, exactly. And that's what they're saying. When she is in her home, she is just in any place, right?
Okay.
Because she's detached completely.
Okay. So there's like rooms, they're not connected like inside.
Yeah.
They're connected through the courtyard, yeah?
Exactly.
Okay.
Yeah. And not very well insulated, right? So it doesn't really matter to her where she is. Because I guess because she's always feeling completely terrible. So it's not a positive project as such, but it's very clear, I think, the idea, and it's just created, with these columns that are holding up the roof, wherever they have. I think they decided because they created sort of this grid, right? And then they just you can just take this roof and put it wherever.
So this is also supposed to happen in the real house?
No, I don't think so.
That would be cool.
It would.
Just change the roof.
But when they were working with it, they just had this square, and they could just put it wherever. So and that's also part of the attitude, right? It doesn't really matter. So in the end, they settled on this. Okay. But it could have been anything, and they just said wherever we have furnishings, we'll put a roof. So that the sofa doesn't get wet and so on. So that's how, and I think this is the bedroom, I think. And it supposedly just holds a bed in the room, right? And that's what you need.
Yeah. It's so peculiar how it's like, it's so open, like it's also big, but it's so open, and the other one is so, like really, like seems like a fortress or something.
Yeah, I think that's, she is this, they also have, the sort of the shapes of the sort of...
They're a bit sharp,
Yeah, jagged, sharp, because she has this sort of fragmented personality, right? That's her issue. One of her issues is that I think that represents it in one way, and the way that she protects herself, and this represents maybe another dimension of her, which is sort of she's unsettled, right? And there's no place to rest in this house.
Yeah, so interesting to see the two interpretations. And where are the furniture or the chairs?
They're over here.
This?
We can go and have a look.
Yes.
The project we were just talking about is this chair here. I think, again, it's really interesting. We were working on these for the last semester, so we've actually had them for a while, and now seeing the project and the chair and the furniture together, I think it's really interesting to see how it resembles each other, because you have this wooden frame, right? Sort of like the home that's just a frame around the functions, the basic functions, and nothing else. And in this case, they were focusing. They created the furniture first, and then worked on the home afterwards. And here they were focusing on sort of also more her body and the way that her body interacts with the world. and she's this young, beautiful woman, and she seems very frail. She's walking around her apartment just in her nightgown, receiving visitors, or not necessarily welcome visitors, right? And so they have this material, that's sort of translucent, right? It's not completely solid, and it can be quite beautiful if you look at it from afar with the light falling on it, and it's sort of draped over the frame. At the same time, it's actually this sort of plastic that you use just on a construction site, so maybe you wrap something in it. So it's not actually a fine material, and I think they wanted to work with that sort of also tension between something that's actually quite beautiful, but when you get close to it, it turns out to be something else.
Okay.
So it represents something that it isn't necessarily. And you also have this sort of beautiful sort of structure but that's also at the same time, it's quite strong, but it's also light and frail, sort of.
Yeah.
And you're not quite sure if you can actually use it as a chair,
I
right?
was wondering. It doesn't seem. I was trying to look for the word, because clearly that chair it's playful, and this one is. It seems uncomfortable. Like you have a clear idea, kind of, when you look at it. And now I'm like I just summer maybe, like when you're like in the, I don't remember the name either, but you're just like laying down in the sun.
Yeah, in the hammock.
Yes, hammock.
Right.
But I don't know if that's the idea.
I think that is the idea. You know, it's the impression of something that is quite breezy and light.
Yeah, it seems very light.
And it could be comfortable, but at the same time, it's a bit unsettling, because this material isn't exactly the greatest material. It's not necessarily very nice to touch, and you're not really sure how to use it, how to interact with it. It's not clear. Now that it's used, you can sort of tell that there's a seat there, but will it hold you up?
Yeah, but I guess it also kind of shows that she doesn't really care.
Yeah, I think
where
so.
she is, or
I think
whatever.
So.
At least that's how I see it. I don't understand why there's this second part here. Is there any particular? Do you know if there's any particular reason?
No, I'm not sure. I'm not sure about that.
Because I'm not sure if it's like if it contributes somehow for the structure itself, or if it's just because like an ornament kind of.
I think it is sort of ornamental, but I think they wanted. That's also, you have this tall frame around it, because they wanted to create something that's spatial. If you look at this piece over here, that's very much an object, right? You just sit on it. But if you use this one, you enter it.
Ah, okay.
I think you both, if you're sitting in this, you're sort of replacing the seat as the thing that's on display.
Okay.
In a way, I think, and so I think this also contributes to the spatialness of it, and sort of the contrast between the sort of light draping and the structure.
And what's the other chair?
The other one is here, and
Wow.
they've been working sort of with a similar idea, with the duvet and the soft material here, but also, and the movie is called Repulsion, right? And this is sort of, I guess this is sort of repulsing whoever tries to sit in it.
Yeah.
At least visually, it's actually so soft that you can move it, so you can sit down, but it's at the same, so it's inviting you to sit, and at the same time it's sort of uninviting you to sit, and that's what they were working with. That's also what they were working with in the home, sort of. It is a home. There is a living room, and visitors can come in, but they're not necessarily welcome, right? And I think this chair also resembles or reflects that. And they've been working, rather than this large frame, they've been working with sort of a double frame, their original idea, or one of their original ideas was, I think, to have just one chair on top of another, to sort of reflect that the brokenness of the schizophrenia, and how it's sort of skewed, right?
Okay.
And in the end, they created these two frames. I think one frame is sufficient to hold a person.
So you can actually separate them?
I'm not sure. I think
okay.
they probably joined them now.
Yeah, but now that you mention, yeah, you can see it.
And you can see it has two legs coming down in each place, and so on. And so it's sort of slightly twisted, right? I think that's what they wanted to do with that. And they've really been working a lot with the small models as well.
Are those napkins?
Yeah, probably. Well, this is the paper that we sketch on, so that you have it's sort of, you can sort of see through it. So you can do lots of sketches on top of each other. So they've used that for this model. But I know they've really also been working on what is the material that is the seat, and what are these ties made out of. And so when you asked before, do you just have a one-off idea and then you just create it? And they've had, I think, 50 ideas probably, just of this idea, versions of this idea. So that's really, and they've been really thorough with it. I think actually this is one that they went slightly back to. I think after they had this, they kept on working. And I think then they settled on, actually this is what we wanted.
Okay. I find it very curious that they also used white.
Yeah.
Like both of.
Exactly.
Was it like, did they talk to each other about it?
I mean, I know they've probably been analyzing the movie together.
Of course.
But I think they just probably by coincidence they had this sense, because she is, you know, this the young blonde woman and she sort of symbolizes that purity, I guess, that the director wanted to express. At the same time as the world and all these men are trying to approach her, and she's trying to get away from them. And you have a lot of shots from the apartment in the movie where you have this light that's glowing around her, and you have the nightgown, exactly. I think that's what they wanted to probably reflect, that the lightness, and I think that translates into this white material. I think they invested a little bit to get this duvet. I think it's not the worst one that you can buy in the store.
Yeah, it seems nice. It seems cozy. This if you ignore that,
exactly.
It's very cozy. No, but if actually even with this, because it's very flexible.
Yeah, exactly.
So yeah. Is there anything you would like to add?
No, I don't know.
I think we covered a lot.
That's good.
So yeah, well, thank you so much for showing us these two characters.
You're welcome.
Yeah. That was it for this program, but stay tuned for the next one. In the meantime, don't forget to check our Facebook page, BURT, for updates on schedules and programs. See you soon.